All right, y'all. What is up, dude? Hopefully, you're enjoying your weekend. I'm back with this next set of stanzas through Beowulf, but I wanted to show you some things before we get into the book reading. My brother for Christmas got me this book right here, American Vikings, from a guy over, I think, in England, who's done a couple of different books. Obviously, reading through people's renditioning of Norse mythology, Norse culture, Viking culture is very interesting to me. I like having multiple perspectives, guys that are people that are like teachers, like at Oxford, or, just like J.R.R. Tolkien, and his linguistic expertise in Norse literature. Also, there's a guy that I just found out who used to be, I think, a professor at California, Berkeley. He's now in Colorado. If you look up his YouTube channel, he's got like 250,000 subscribers, and he teaches the Norse language. I actually just did a video of my renditioning of reading of the Norse alphabet. And so, yeah, just wanted to give you guys a nice little perspective of what I enjoy. Check out my new room at my new place too. The Beowulf and lion and tiger theme is definitely a big thing, and I wanted to show my brother's gift to me, Nathaniel's gift to me. I think 3 years ago now, and then this is my brother Zach's gift to me this year. Kind of a short summary of this book. He goes through the different American Viking perspectives, like the perspectives that Americans have had on the Vikings. And I think it's valuable. To give you a short summary, he talks about the Minnesota Kensington runestone, which is legendary, and not just legendary, but like an actual stone, whether it's a hoax or it's real, that's up for y'all to decide. You don't have to go with the scholarly opinion on everything. You can kind of use your own brain and discern for yourself what actually is the truth of the Norse in this country, in this land, and how they interacted with, the peoples in Newfoundland and Vineland, which is what he writes about, and then also in Minnesota, right? If that actually is a real story, that 70 Viking men with apparently two ships landed up by Lake Superior, Minnesota, or up on Hudson Bay, and traveled 3 weeks or 2 weeks to inland Minnesota near Alexandria, Minnesota, and then they went fishing, and 10 men were killed by native men, right? Like indigenous peoples, right? Because they were intruding on their land. Like, that's a fascinating story. And it makes me wonder, like, man, what actually did happen, right? The year was 1362. If you read the Kensington runestone, I'm hoping eventually to go up there and end the book of Beowulf up at the Viking Museum up in Alexandria, Minnesota. I think that would segue pretty nice into hopefully the next section that I'm going to do with the story and life of Alexander the Great. So, yeah, 1362, right? With actual Viking runes, and people think it's a hoax. Some people think and thoroughly believe that it's real. I'm actually more of the ones that believe that it's probably real. Just because I do think that the Vikings were here. I think that they were a very noble, brave, and bold people. And to me, it's not fantastic or like incredible to think that 70 Thanes, mighty Thanes, like a dude, like a football team, right? I played for the St. Paul Pioneers, played for Bethel, Hastings, and I'm hoping to make the Minnesota Myth. It's not incredible to me to think that in the spring of a thaw of a year, that a team of Vikings, like a football team of Vikings with two ships that want to go Viking raiding, would go into the most beautiful parts of the discoverable world and then try and live and survive and take what they can, give nothing back, as a as a Captain Jack Sparrow, Pirates of the Caribbean quote, like a Vikings of the Caribbean or a Vikings of the Norse. I'm trying to get that into a movie, along with my new book, The Story of Blind Beauty. 70 men, like warriors, thanes, right? that are on an adventure don't want to just settle in some Vineland, which is more like a cargo place, in my opinion. Like, I've studied that. I've watched documentaries. I've looked at like their harbor and like their place of like dwelling, and it's like, dude, if I was a Viking, I'd be like, yeah, that'd be nice to have like a safe place to store your goods. But the real stuff, like the beautiful stuff and like the hard places to get, that's out in like where the trees are and where many Native Americans are. Like, that's the places I want to go discover. You know, it's not where I want to go settle, but it's where I want to go adventure, explore, conquer, whatever you want to put it as. And I love, people know that I love the Native Americans. I'm not one of those manifest destiny and, you know, eradicate, you know, ethnical races, right? Like, that's just not me. I'm definitely more of understand culture, love culture, appreciate it for what it is, and see where you can connect in a real way. But yeah, to me, that story is totally believable and really fascinating to me. So I want to get back into reading an even more legendary saga with Beowulf, but I want to give the validity of the American Vikings, right? They were here before Columbus, and you know, we have one stone story of a group of a team of Vikings traveling up into Minnesota. Where else could they have gone? Where else could they have been? You know, could they have gotten as far as China? Could they have sailed around Africa? Like, where else could those men have gone with those ships? To me, North America is a definite yes. What they did there, you know, a lot of it's mysterious because we haven't discovered a specific written scroll or, you know, but we have what they have written on stone and where they buried their dead. And that's why I also think the Kensington runestone is believable, is because when, you know, Norsemen and Norwegian men and Vikings of old, like when they died, their gravestones would have Norse runes on them with a tale or descriptions. Like, that's totally makes sense to me. So very, very interesting stuff. I hope you enjoyed my commentary for the last 7 minutes. If not, you can you probably already have or will skip through to where I start reading the book. But yeah, enjoy the perspective and hopefully enjoy the reading. And then yeah, also I want to show you my hopefully soon to be book. It's not yet published on Amazon, right? The Story of Blind Beauty. Yeah, it'll be a wonderful, wonderful tale. Definitely worth the price, in my opinion. I'm not trying to gyp people of their money. I'm trying to give them a great, great story at a great, great price. So I would love your business and I'd love your patronage as well. So here we go. Back at it. The tale of the mighty Beowulf. It's been the first time I haven't done this outside in a while, so a little bit more comfy, a little bit more cozy. Just had a mighty meal of Chipotle as well. Double meat, let me tell you this, double meat barbacoa steak with black beans, brown rice, cheese, sour cream. Oh, so good. Medium salsa or whatever, and like 2 scoops of corn with the Chipotle Tabasco with also the green sauce. Oh my goodness. What a mighty meal. And then mix of this fruit drink, mango, pomegranate lemonade tea, and then a little bit of OJ. Feeling blessed, feeling good. So here we go. Beowulf Stanzas, I think 27 through I think I want to do through 31, so you can follow along with me. Then Beowulf the Bold went with his war band, striding over the sand to the plain by the sea, along the wide shore. The world candle. The world candle, the sun, shone, the sun hastening from the south, marching together, they quickened their pace toward the protector of nobles. The slayer of Ogentheow, inside the stronghold, the young war king, who had proved his worth, giving rings to retainers. There King Hygelac was right away told of Beowulf's arrival, that back to his home, the king's guardian of comrades, his shield companion, had come full of life. Unharmed from sword sport, to greet him in court, space was quickly cleared within the wide hall, as the king directed to welcome the foot warriors. Then with the king sat the one who survived the deadly fighting. Kinsman opposite kinsman, as the ruler of men gave ceremonial greeting with earnest words. The queenly daughter of Hereth went round the high hall with vessels of mead, showed love to the people, sharing the drinking cup among the heroes. Then Hygelac began, pressed by curiosity, politely to question his companion, sitting there in the high hall, above the adventurous of the sea geats. About the adventurous of the sea geats. How did you do on your voyage, dear Beowulf? After all of a sudden you resolved to go off to seek deadly combat far over salt waters, hand fighting at Heorot. Have you for Hrothgar the price of renown somewhat remedied his widely known woes? Worried over this venture, I have seethed with sorrows, yet did not trust the chances of my beloved friend. For long I entreated you not to take on in battle that deadly terror, but let the South Danes settle their own scores in their war with Grendel. I give thanks to God that I may now see you back, safe and sound. Beowulf spoke, the son of Ecgtheow. The truth is not hidden, King Hygelac, among many men concerning the great meeting of Grendel and me in the time we two tested each other in battle. In the place he brought sorrow, never-ending miseries to so many of the men of the Victory Scyldings. Yet I won vengeance, so no kinsman of Grendel can have reason to boast anywhere over the earth about our night clashing. No matter who lives longest of that loathsome race enveloped in evil, when first there I went to the ring hall to hold counsel with Hrothgar. As soon as he knew what my heart was set on, the famous king, the kinsman of Healfdene, assigned me a seat beside his own sons. The company was spirited. Never have I seen under heaven's arch more joy in mead drinking among friends in the hall. At times the famed queen, peace-bringer to the people, circled around the hall, urging on the young revelers. Often she gave rings to some of the men before she went to her seat. At times Hrothgar's daughter herself took the ale cup to each of the earls in the war band of veterans, and I heard the men sitting together in the hall call her Freyawaru, Freyawaru, as she passed the studded cup to each of the heroes. She had been promised as bride, gold-adorned and youthful, to the gracious son of Froda, the king of the Scyldings, protector of his people. Now, I want to pause and talk about what Beowulf is sharing. You know, the Norse women were very noble women. Their culture, you know, many people think of Vikings as, oh, they pillage and rape and this and that. Like, they had a king, dude. Like, they had a hierarchical system of honor and order back in ancient times. Like, seriously, the modern world could learn a lot from ancient tribal systems and kingly systems. Their women were looked on as valuable, not because they were just beautiful, but like because there was honor in the lordship passing on his nobility through his daughter. Like they would give them, just like in the story, she has been promised as bride, gold adorned and youthful, to gracious son of Froda, another chieftain's son from a different land. So they'd marry off the daughters to make peace with these foreign nations or foreign tribes or other Viking tribes around Norway, Sweden, Denmark, wherever they, had business or travel relations. And sometimes it would make peace, but oftentimes it would end with war because they wouldn't be treated right. It's interesting to think about how a mighty man treats his daughter and how he wants something valuable from her. And just this image of the women of a chieftain, a Thane's court, were peace bringers. They held the cup of peace, right? Something that gives delight. And the beauty of their daughters when a foreigner, a foreign Viking would come for hospitality or for a noble purpose, for a daughter to give mead or drink or a wonderful drink to a warrior, and for that warrior to drink from the cup. Of a beautiful shield maiden or a beautiful chieftain's daughter, maiden, virgin, that would have been a very beautiful sight and a wonderful thing, a wonderful image of honor. Their women were honorable women. Some of them were even warriors. Not all of them. Many of them probably not so. But the strongest of the women would produce the strongest babies. And so, yeah, like there was definitely like a, hey, if your daughter is beautiful and not just beautiful, but mighty and like, not like, steroid jack, but like, hey, you can tell like, whoa, she's tall, she's beautiful, she's strong, she's got big hips, she's gonna produce good babies, aka aka great Viking warriors. So yeah, there's value in the way that ancient chieftains of the Norse saw their daughters and their women and their wives, and you protect that sacredly, so you like fiercely so yeah, hoping to do the same thing with my wife and family one day, God willing. So back to the story. The king of the Scyldings, protector of his people, arranged terms for the union, considered it advisable that he could settle the conflicts of deadly feuds through marriage of his daughter. Yet seldom does it happen that the spear stays at rest for even a short while after a man has been slain, though the bride be splendid. So you can see in this part of the tale, like, yeah, you may give away your very beautiful and precious daughter, but if somebody kills your brother, like a blood feud, dude, no matter how beautiful that daughter is that you gave for peace's sake, if somebody kills your dearest kin or your brother, you're probably going to have a war over that. So it's very important to know who you make peace with and how you make peace with them, and then also who you protect and how you protect them. So very interesting stuff. Then may the Heatholbard prince be provoked, and each of the thanes from among his people, when he goes with his wife into the hall, that her Danish attendants are entertained nobly and richly adorned with ancient heirlooms, Heatholbard treasures, made hard and patterned. that were theirs while they might wield those weapons, till they led their own comrades with themselves as well, down to destruction in the shield play of battle. Then at the beer drinking, an old spear warrior will speak, seeing a Heathobard sword on one of the Danes. And remembering the slaughter, his spirit made grim. In this sad mood, he begins to put to the test a young Heathobard hero, awakening in his heart the fury of war through uttering these words. Yep, if I could put this in my own words, drinking and foolish speech is inviting for a beating. It was the same back in ancient culture as it is today. You start getting drunk and you start speaking like a fool, then you're inviting a beating, and not just a beating, but potentially bloodshed, which, is what the author of Beowulf is describing here. He begins to put to the test, and remembering the slaughter his spirit made grim. In this sad mood, he begins to put to the test a young Heathobard hero, awakening in his heart the fury of war through uttering these words. My dear comrade, can you recognize that sword, that fine old blade that your father bore into the battle, with his helmet strapped on for the last time, when he was struck down by Danes, the powerful Scyldings, who controlled the killing place, when our wither guild fell in the slaughter of heroes. Now in this hall, some young son of those murderers swaggers out on the floor, gloating in our arms, boasting of the carnage, and bearing the old sword, the one that you by right ought to possess. Like he's sharing like this story of I want to put it in my own words so you can get the feeling. It's these drunkards are mocking about an ancient victory that killed your dad, and then they're trying to boast about it when that sword that they carried that they killed your own dad with should rightfully be yours. It shows, war often, breeds more war. Peace is a very valuable thing. And there is a time for war and a time for peace, and what you choose to go to war over, in my opinion, it must be noble. It must be for a noble cause, for a just cause. Otherwise, you just have continual family feuds and family feuds that lead to war, and, that's not advantageous. I think with Alexander the Great, I don't want to get too much into that story. That's kind of what I'm going to next. With Alexander the Great, when a king conquers many peoples and many lands, his goal isn't just carnage and just absolute, war. It's for the peace sake, for the sake of the empire, for the sake of knowledge, for the sake of understanding, for the sake of the greater good of all, hear me, all people, not just his own tribe, not just the Greeks, or not just the Norse, but all people. What is the greatest good of humanity? And if I can share my Christian faith, is Jesus Christ, the King of kings and the Lord of lords, the chief of chiefs, and the mightiest of the mighty is Christ our Lord. And so, my goal and aim, and I feel like the writer's goal and aim of Beowulf is to exalt God and his King, Christ Jesus. And also, see how Christ was working through these chiefs and these ancient peoples to bring about his goal, which is eternal peace in the Christian kingdom, in Christ's holy kingdom. So back to the story. There's my perspective on rightful kingship and rightfully waging war for the purpose of eternal peace, and that rightly so in Christ. Thus he attempts the young warrior every time he can with stinging words until the moment arrives when the offending thane of the queen is cut down, bloodied by the bite of the blade, forfeiting his life for his father's deeds. His Heathobard foe escapes with his life, since he knows the land well. Then the oaths, sworn by earls on both sides, will be broken after the deadly rage wells up against Ingold. And after new troubles arise, his love for his wife begins to become cooler. Thus I would not count on the firm friendship of the Heathobard people, nor on peace made by marriage without deceit toward Danes. I shall now return to speak more about Grendel, so that you, giver of treasures, may fully know how we finally concluded the hand fight of heroes. When the gem of the heavens had gone gliding beyond earth, the monster came raging, a gruesome night terror, seeking to take us by storm where we were yet unharmed, holding the hall. The onslaught turned out to be fatal, for Hunskio, fated for grim death, the very first of the victims. A well-armed warrior, Grendel the man-eater, tore with his teeth the famous Hall Thane, gulping the dear man's body all the way down. Still the bloody-toothed killer, intent on more slaying, did not wish to depart from the gold-adorned hall without more bodies to bear away in his grip. This was a huge giant. But he would pit his renowned might against me. Grasping with hands, he held hanging down a wondrous wide bag, skillfully closed with clasps. It was cleverly designed for its deadly use, with the craft of the devil out of dragon skins. I was thinking about this as I was doing my reading before sharing this. I don't want to make this super long, but think about this. Satan at one time, and we'll get into this, hopefully, God willing, in other readings of the Bible, the book of Genesis, and even in some of my other endeavors, hopefully, Lord willing, in the future. But if God can make the heavens and the earth, and he did, I believe he did, Satan also has the ability to make things. And it's curious to me to think about what the enemy can forge. And, dragon skins, a lot of you think when I say the word dragon, mythical creature, like I'm not there. You can go, I have a buddy that showed me a podcast. You can go listen to the stuff that I listen to for 2 hours because I'm fascinated by it and very, very much interested in it. Dragons were real and are real from a certain perspective. Now, whether you think they're mythical flying creatures or whether you think that they're more like dinosaurs, that's up for your own interpretation. I have my belief and thoughts on specifically dragon culture, and that's what I want to talk about, obviously, prior to getting to where we're going to hopefully end, because the book of Beowulf ends with Beowulf and a dragon, a drakon, right? And so it's interesting that this giant, along with the craft of the devil, which totally makes sense to me if you read Genesis 6, right? The B'nai Elohim, the sons of God, slept with the mortal women of old and created giants and legends, right? Genesis chapter 6, the end of that chapter. It shows where the origins of giants came from. The B'nai Elohim, the fallen sons of God, the fallen angels, meaning aka the demons, had sex with these women that they, in ancient times, used to physically see and behold. There was actually a time where the devil was a physical, physically seen being on this earth to mankind. The Greeks called him Zeus. The more ancient peoples of Noah's day, I wonder what they would have called Lucifer. To behold him, right? Right now, the devil's invisible. You can't see him. I mean, you could through spiritual senses, but you cannot physically, show me Satan, right? Or demons. They're invisible right now. at one time in history, they were not. Because how could they have sex with mortal women and create giants if they're just invisible, right? Like, think about that. Like, we're talking about a story, a tale, a saga that has biblical ramifications and actual reality to what we're saying. So Grendel, this giant, an offspring of a demon of ancient times, either in the days of Noah or very, very shortly after, as a bag made of dragon skins that he puts men in, like, and drags them off to eat. Like, think about that. Like, whoa, like, what is that saying? What does that mean? What is that? How do you understand that if this tale came about during the Roman era, or if it is actually a tale of something that I think is preceding the Roman Empire, or around the same time as the Roman Empire? When was the last giant slain? These are questions I'd like to ask, just for you to think about and ponder, because it's stuff that I think about. When was the last giant slain? In what year? Do you know? By what culture? By what people group? The Norse? The Hebrews? The Africans? Native Americans? My Native American friends at the powwow, they tell me about giants in their lands as well. Like, think about this, people. Like, we have giants, tales of giants in cultures around the world, and tales of dragons in cultures around the world. And, we can get into it more later, and I can make a specific video on it. We should get back to the reading, but I want you to really think about the things that you read and hear, and, like, wonder about them with wisdom, not just like, whatever, Like, think about it deeply. You'll be surprised what you find. This wild, savage worker came up with the plan to shove me inside, though I had done no evil, with many others as well. But that might not be. For in a towering fury I stood upright. It would take long to recount how I then repaid that enemy of people for each of his evils, while the deeds I performed there, my dear prince, brought honor to your people. Yet Grendel got away to enjoy what he could of his little time left, though his strong right hand remained behind as a trophy in hail-wrought. While he wretchedly went forth, mournful in mood, to sink down to the mere bottom. For that deadly fight, the friend of the Scyldings gave me as reward many gold-plated treasures. A great store of riches after morning arrived, and we had set ourselves down to feast in the hall. There was singing amid the general good cheer. And old Scylding told tales from far back lore. From far back lore, at times a battle-brave warrior took up the harp, striking joy with the strings, relating a story both tragic and true. And the great-hearted king told a wondrous tale in traditional fashion. Sometimes an old warrior, stooping with age, started to make speeches to the band of youths about boldness in battle. His heart surged within as he brought to mind his wisdom of many winters. Thus we passed the whole day in the hall, taking our pleasure till the night once again came over the men. Then quickly after, the mother of Grendel prepared revenge for her grief, making sorrowful journey. Death had seized her son in war with the Wedders. This monstrous woman got vengeance for her kin by killing a Danish hero boldly in his bed. Her victim was Ashare, a wise old counselor, who went forth from this life. Nor the next morning might the Danish people lay their dead friend on a funeral pyre, for the flames to consume the fallen body of the beloved man. For she carried off the corpse in a fiendish embrace under the mountain stream, That was the most grievous of griefs for Hrothgar, which the prince of his people had to endure. Then the Danish king, sorrowing in spirit, and here's something I'm just thinking of now as I was talking to you guys about this. So you know how giants are mostly male in the context of the Bible. What happens if a demon has a daughter with a mortal woman? What does that produce? Think about it. Something I'm just kind of thinking about when I'm reading about the mother of Grendel, right? You know, if a demon has sex with a human being and it becomes a man or like a male child, it's a giant. Well, what's the female version? Is that what Grendel's mother was? Because, dude, it's a like pretty wicked description like that you read in this book. So just be thinking about things like that. And then also, you know, be cautious. Don't be afraid of evil, right? David taught you, right, from the Psalms. I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, right? God is greater than any evil that you will ever face or ever see. That should be a great comfort to your soul. But yeah, be curious, keep thinking. That was the most grievous of griefs for Hrothgar, which the prince of his people had to endure. Then the Danish king, sorrowing in spirit, begged me on your behalf to perform heroic deeds, to dare mortal danger in the tumult of waters, to chance all for glory, promising me great gifts. Then I sought down through surging waters the well-known grim guardian at the bottom of the mere. For a time we two locked in hand-to-hand combat. Then the waters welled with blood as I cut off the head of Grendel's mother with a mighty sword blade, down in that war hall. It's a mysterious place wherever he went to go find that wicked woman-like creature. Like, it's mysterious. Very mysterious. If you remember back to my reading up at my buddy's cabin by the lake, that mere that he went to go find that creature in, that Grendel's mother, was very mysterious. And you could do some thinking on it. You can get back to me on what you think it was. I think it was some sort of underground cavern beneath water, almost like a Loch Ness Monster's lair, right? Something that can breathe air in a cave and then go back under sea and come back up. But that's what I think when I read it. What y'all think is what y'all think. So, and after such danger I departed, still living, for I was not yet fated to die. But the king of the nobles, the kinsman of Healfdene, afterward rewarded me with a great many riches. I think this will be the last stanza that we read for now, before we get into nearing the end of the book. Thus the Danish king acted according to custom, and so not at all did I lack for rewards. Rich payment for heroism, yes. When people do mighty deeds, how do nobles repay them? Think about it. Like David, the king, right? The ancient Hebrew king was actually just a poor man's son. In a certain sense, he was like my Grandpa Green. He had a lot of babies, and he died not very rich, right? He had 7 sons and daughters, and he had farmland, and that was about it. Like, that's how I imagine Jesse to be. And the fact that David was the youngest son of a man named Jesse who was just a farmer, David's life was not, from an earthly perspective, look what, I want to give you some encouragement if you're coming from a poor situation, because I know the influence that God can give people. And I know the life and the power and the wisdom he can give to inspire people to do great things coming from humble beginnings, right? Whoever you are, whether you're 15 years old listening to this podcast and you're just interested in the story of Beowulf or interested in my journey as a man, it can inspire you as well. Like, dude, The youngest son of a man named Jesse, this David, God chose because he had a good heart, a heart that cared for creatures like sheep. And he used that young man to slay a giant and thus become a king by God's favor, not man's, right? By God's choosing, not man's. And so no matter where you come from or what you're doing or where you're at, if you have faith in God, God can exalt you and bring you out of poverty and place you amongst kings and give you fame, honor, riches, renown, might, wisdom, and glory. Not for your sake, but for his sake. I think the story of David is inspiring, and I think the story of Beowulf is inspiring. And, those who do heroic deeds, are rightfully due the honors given them and the rewards and the fame given to them. But how do you receive it? Do you receive it humbly, as a good man should, or do you receive it proudly and thus, prove your own shame? For God is not a God who exalts the proud, he humbles them. He exalts the humble and the lowly and gives them honor and glory, and that they reflect back to him. Like, I want you to know right now, whatever deeds I do in the future, great or bad, it's all for God's glory, because I love God. And I hope you do too. So wherever you're at in life, if you're coming from the poor side of the spectrum, or if you're, living in abundant affluence, right? You can still learn a lesson from humility and how humility precedes honor. And that is true. But the son of Healfdene gave me wealth to take home, to dispose as I wished. I bring all this to you, the king of brave warriors, giving it with gladness. For you are the source of every favor, and I have few near kinsmen, except for you, Hygelec, my uncle and king. Man, he gave that money to his uncle, man. Like, I look at Brett Favre like my uncle, man. Like, I'm 29, Favre's in his, 50s now. And dude, when you receive honor and glory and riches from somebody else, you usually try and give them to somebody you have more respect for than yourself. So I think that's why Beowulf gave him so much of this golden treasure that he received from himself. And I think he also had a vision of, hey, my uncle's the ruler, and when he dies, I want to honor him, and maybe he'll give me honors back. And you'll see in the story, if you keep reading, what happens. Then Beowulf had men bring the banner with the boar symbol, right? The boar was the symbol of the Vikings, or many of them, the Norse. The helmet worn high for battle, the gray mail shirt, the patterned sword, while giving formal speech. Hrothgar, the wise prince, gave me this war dress, asked me to assure you with a certain few words that he wishes you to know of his goodwill toward you. He said that Heorogar, former king of the Danes, prince of the Scyldings, long possessed this armor. Yet he would not pass on this breast protection to battle-bold Heoweard, the king's own son, even though he was loyal. Make use of it well. I have heard that 4 horses, also fast and alike, with colors of bay, yellow shading to brown, followed those gifts. Beowulf bestowed on him both the horses and treasures. Such should a kinsman do, not braid a net of malice for other men, with secret craft, nor prepare to send a comrade down to his death. The nephew of Hygelec was ever loyal and true in the toughest fighting, and each one was mindful for the other's good. Think about that. These people knew what was right. Today, people try and gyp people money for nothing, just for, I don't want to say a term that we used to use down in Wisconsin with my cousins, but, I'll save that one. But, there's a different part of me that, I grew up in a certain way, but I'm not saying things I probably would have said back in the day because of God, you know? So, yeah. It's interesting, man. Like, when you find a loyal and true friend that's willing to bleed for you, there's something to be said about a man that'll bleed for you. For real. So, that's the kind of love that these Viking Thanes had for each other, a brotherly love, a warrior-like love. That's powerful, man. I heard that Beowulf gave Queen Hygd a neck ring. Beautiful, beauty. Wondrously ornamented, given him by Wealhtheow, now his gift to royal Hygd, with 3 graceful horses, bearing shining saddles. Ever after receiving the ring, her breast was adorned with the bright jewel. Beautiful. What a gracious gift for a mighty, mighty warrior to give a queen. A beautiful necklace, a bright shining jewel. Thus the son of Ecgtheow showed himself to be brave, a man famed for fighting with heroic deeds, living ever for glory. He never slew hearth companions in drunken fury, nor did he have a frenzied spirit, but the brave battle man guarded the generous gifts given him by God, of the greatest strength of all mankind. For many years he had been scorned as the Geatish warriors considered him worthless, nor did the Lord of the Weders wish to do him honor among the young men seated on the mead bench. They thought him to be slow and slothful, not qualified as a warlord. Yet a turnaround came for every act of disdain toward the glorious hero. And this is where I start thinking about Anakin Skywalker. All my Star Wars fans out there, you know, the council didn't want him. People wanted to reject him, but, when you know the favor that is in you, it doesn't matter what other men think, whether they give you honors or a seat in the council or not. You just do what you know to be right, and eventually, who you are will become revealed to all. So, yeah, I personally, I don't look at Anakin Skywalker's story as tragedy. I think there's a lot of hope in that story if you really think about it and think deeply about the chosen one becoming a great warrior, turning to the dark side, and then eventually destroying the evil one, right? It gives me hope. It's very powerful. It's a beautiful redemption story, and there's a lot of Christian themes in the life and story of Anakin and Darth Vader. So, yeah, when I read this part where it's like, many people look down on you. Think of Ray Lewis. I think of a lot of football guys that I've looked up to over the years. Oh, the quote from Madden or whatever. I've always been told that I'm too small, I'm not big enough, I'm not fast enough. I don't have what it takes. And then it's like Ray Lewis, the lion-like man, super close up. And then it's like, starts talking about Lombardi and, for me, Packers, right? That's like the history of the game, dude. Like, Lombardi was trying to become a priest, dude, in the Catholic Church, and then he's like, yeah, I want to lead men. I want to teach men how to be men and play football, right? And, Lombardi inspired men, right? And, that's what the trophy's named after, man. You got to learn about what those dudes taught about and talked about in their life and what they backed up with their actions and not just their words, The life of warriors is a very fascinating study. Find ones you like and learn from their mistakes and also learn from their glorious successes and what God has, shown through them. I look at Ray Lewis and I think of God's mercy and might. Dude was a murderer or killer and, came from a really, really sad situation, how he was brought up, the 52 deck of cards. Go get inspired, listen to that. Go on Ray Ray's page or find Ray Ray's videos and just listen to him talk, man. You'll get some wisdom from that, man, for sure. Go listen. So, where a warrior begins is not where he ends, and where he ends, hopefully, will be in glory. glory forever, you know. Allah the Vikings, Valhalla. Allah the Christians, heaven. Their words for heaven. So, then the protector of nobles, the battle-brave king, ordered the heirloom of Herathel, adorned with gold, to be brought in the hall. No sword was the least better, a greater treasure among Geats during that time. Hygelac laid the sword on the lap of Beowulf. So he gave him riches. Hygelac gave him a great, honorable sword. You know, it's powerful imagery. You give wealth, he gives a weapon forged for war. There's honor in those gifts givings. There should be honor in gift givings, just like I showed you with my brothers giving me the gifts in the beginning of this video. That's how you establish bonds of kinship, fellowship, and love. Give gifts. And handed over to him 7,000 hides of land, dude. Like, this guy, he gives him wealth and gold and riches, and this dude gets 7,000 hides of land, and I want to share this with you. A hide was a measure of land of sufficient size to support one family. So he gave him 7,000 families worth of lands. That's how rich this king was. You know, like, you give gifts and then you receive greater gifts in return, right? It's like, who can outgive the giver? Think about it, man. Like, Jesus wants to outgive everyone. For real. Like, he's that great a gift giver. But, you know, there's a lot of sacrifice that goes into receiving the gifts of God from heaven, man. Think about it. If earthly lords want to give good gifts to their loyal subjects, what does our heavenly Lord want to give to his loyal subjects, to his loyal servants? Imagine that for a moment. Wow. Hygelac laid the sword on the lap of Beowulf and handed over to him 7,000 hides of land with a hall and a prince's seat. Those two together in that country lawfully held large territories. Their lands by ancestral right, but Hygelac's was larger. In that broad kingdom, because his rank was higher. Afterwards it happened a long time later, in deafening battles when Hygelac lay dead. And his son Herodred was slain by war swords. Sounds just like Saul and Jonathan, doesn't it? I mean, is this not like the Norse's version of 1st and 2nd Samuel? For real. Like, these two were slain dead in battle, and then who takes over? Look. Herodred was slain by war swords, struck down under the defense of his shield, when the battle-bold warriors, the Hetho Skillfangs, hunted him down with his war band of heroes, attacking hard against this nephew of Hereric. Then Beowulf became ruler of the broad kingdom, the realm of the Geats, which he ruled over well for 50 long winters. That was a wise king, old protector of his people, until the time when, in the dark of night, a dragon began to swell with power, which had been holding watch over a horde on the hearth, or a horde on the heath, which had been holding watch over a horde on the heath, a high burial mound where a path lay beneath, unknown to men. Think about that, man. What is under the earth or inside the earth that you cannot see, that you do not know? I'm not trying to scare you, but think about it, man. Leviathan, right? I think this might be the first time on video other than when I was in college, back when I was kind of getting used to these phones and stuff, you know, learning how to share the gospel, right? I think I may have talked about Leviathan or mentioned that dragon's name once before on video. Leviathan, the chiefest of the creatures and works of God, of Yah. What's under the earth that you can't see? I remember when I was a little child, right? We're about done, so I'm just kind of summing up. We're going to hopefully end this video in 5 minutes. But I remember when I was a child, you remember Godzilla, the classic one from like the 90s, 1994, 99 or whatever, like early 2000s. Chinese men saying, Godzilla, with the candle, right? Godzilla, 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 right? Like, and then, that movie actually was pretty good for it being like so old and, like the quality of the AI, CGI, whatever, the graphics. Very interesting. How you tell a tale matters, right? It either keeps you entertained or it's like, this is just, I don't believe this. This just doesn't look right, But yeah, when I first heard about Godzilla, and then when I first started reading the Bible in the book of Job, probably the second oldest book in the Bible, and I include in my Bible the book of Enoch. I don't know what's up with these other biblical scholars and stuff, but yeah, I think the book of Enoch was on the ark, and the fact that we still have it is very intriguing to me. If you've never read the book of Enoch, I would advise you highly, if you're a Christian and a believer in Jesus Christ, to go read that book. Go find it and read it. And yeah, it follows along with what I'm talking about here, but yeah, what's under the earth and what's under the ocean that you cannot see is very fascinating to me. Now, Godzilla has like kind of connections with like the nuclear bomb and iguanas, but man, I'm telling you, like, before the imaginations of the 20th and 21st century, filmmakers, right, there was and still is the Bible and God's chiefest work among creatures, which is Leviathan, which apparently he slayed. Is there an ancestor of Leviathan still alive under the ocean at like the heart of it? Who knows? God knows. And yeah, it makes me curious and it makes me wonder when you think about how this tale is told. And after 50 long winters of Beowulf's rule, one of these dragons under a burial mound in the earth, comes to power, right? I'll read it again. Just a setup for hopefully the next video. Until the time when, in the dark of night, a dragon began to swell with power, which had been holding watch over a hoard on the heath, a high burial mound where a path lay beneath, unknown to men. Yet one man found the path, making his way nearby, and he went inside to the heathen hoard, seizing a cup with his hand, a large ornamented treasure. Now this goes directly to, if you know anything, raise your hands. If you're Tolkien fans, if you're my Lord of the Rings, LOTR ring nerds, right? Lord of the Rings nerds. Bilbo, right? Where do you think J.R.R. Tolkien got the image of Bilbo sneaking into the heart of the lonely mountain and taking a cup to give to the dwarves? Where do you think he got that from? Right here, folks. Right here in Beowulf Stanzas 31. So it's just awesome to see how stories come full circle and where people get their imaginings and their illustrations and wondrous works from, I like that, man. I loved that. I read The Hobbit. That was like the first full book I read. I read the Bible first, like part of it, right? I read like a sentence when I was in my second year of first grade. And then I remember reading the whole of The Hobbit in third grade in 2003. I loved it, man. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. How things get inspired, man. Seizing a cup with his hand, a large ornamented treasure, though it had been tricked while it was sleeping. The dragon made no secret of the plunder by the thief. The neighboring people soon found out the terror of its fury. And that's where we're going to stop for now. Kind of like, Smog, Desolation of Smog, where that ends off. Dude, I thought when I was in college watching that with my buddies, right? we went we went to this theater, right, and we watched it, and we're like, oh man, like when are they gonna get to like the destruction of, you know, the lake town, and when is Bard gonna kill him? And like it doesn't even happen, and they waited till like the third movie to entertain us with Smaug's death and then the Battle of the Five Armies. And yeah, man, good memories. And it's amazing to see how literature can become entertainment via movies in the modern era we live in. So I think if Tolkien was alive and kind of like living, I don't want to say vicariously through me, like I feel like I'm a lot like Tolkien, but just in the modern context, like he would have loved to have seen what became of his books, right? And like there might be, you know, it depends on how fast the book gets known, or my other works that I'm working on currently get known. It's just like you have this vision and you enjoy what you create in the context you live in, but then you don't get to see the full fruition of it. You know, kind of thinking about it, it's like, man, if I like to see, like, if my books don't get popular until after I die, and then make it into a movie or whatever in the future might be something awesome that you go to. What would be better than a movie theater? Think about it. Like, being able to see what happened with Tolkien is kind of like a joy to me. It's like, oh, look what he created, look what became of it. I'm creating now what will become of it. It's unknown to me, and that's kind of cool. But still create, even if you don't get to see some of the other things that come about through it. So that's my encouragement, my life lesson. And yeah, we're going to get into the final stanzas of this great saga and tale of the Norsemen, the story of Beowulf. So hope y'all have a good weekend. Peace, and may the good Lord, the Almighty King, may he bless you, and may he keep you forever. Amen. And enjoy.